control this. When that buzzer goes off, just drink from me.
You don't get it. I can't stop, Elena. I'm a Ripper. A Ripper doesn't stop. I listen to the words that come out of your mouth, and all I hear is the sound of your heart pumping blood through your body. And when that clock ticks down, I'm going to have to feed on you. You want to know what's worse? I'm not going to be able to stop.
I don't believe that. You can fight it. You just have to want it bad enough.
Why? Because I love you.
Yeah. That's right, Stefan, because you love me. You'll fight because after everything that we've been through, you owe me that.
You know what? You're right. You're right. I owe you everything. Because through all of this, you are the one thing that has kept me from giving up, from turning it all off. But I can't help what I am, Elena. The more blood that I get, the more I want, and if I get so much as near yours, you are dead.
What exactly are Rippers, and why can they turn vampires that typically avoid unnecessary killings, vampires with a conscience, vampires with compassion, into a brutally sadistic and psychotic killing machine with no compassion and little to no morality or conscience? There are a few misconceptions surrounding the lore around Rippers, one of which being which characters will be classified as a Ripper. So I'll be going through each individual characters that would technically be called a Ripper, or they were outright stated to be Rippers in the Vampire Diaries universe. But firstly, what exactly are Rippers in terms of lore definitions? Well, vampires when they first turn tend to have little to no control over their thirst for blood. If they see blood, they're compelled to drink it. This causes them to be excessively violent and they have absolutely no control over it. Almost all vampires faces this problem when they first start, unless they have someone that can teach them how to control it, to the point that they have almost complete control over their cravings, although the sour blood can still affect them. However, the only time they lose control is when they are extremely hungry and haven't had blood for a really long time. However, with Rippers on the other hand, it's slightly different. This is mainly because Rippers have the same problem newly turned vampires face forever. They can never control it, and this is because Rippers are almost always hungry. They are gluttonous overfeeders, and
a Ripper will feed until there is nothing left to feed on, and then they'll move on to the next and the next.
They don't care how a victim feels, whether they're in pain or not. They have absolutely no morality or conscience. The ones that do, for example, Stefan, basically black out when feeding because he basically becomes a completely different person. A lot of people in the verse mistake all Rippers with vampires that have switched off their humanity due to just how sadistic they are. But in truth, some keep it on. But when they go on a killing spree, they just have zero control over their feeding habits. Their feeding behavior is more akin to predatory wild animals than they are to humans or even other vampires. They growl, they hiss, and show off their fangs when someone tries to interfere with their feeding. Rippers also kind of love the act of feeding and find new, ingenious, and sadistic ways to make feeding entertaining for them because they kind of view the act of feeding as a game and they just like it to be as fun as possible. For example, they let their victims escape just to hunt them down. It got to the point in which that, according to Klaus,
you have many useful talents. In fact, I learned some of my favorite tricks from you.
Like, imagine being so sadistic that you were doing things Kol Mikaelson of all people never thought of doing in the 900 years it took for him to meet Stefan. So if you're asked what exactly are Rippers, then the simplest answer will be sadistic predatory vampires that can't control themselves around blood because they suffer from an endless hunger, and the more blood they drink, the worse they become. Also, it's implied that it's a gene that's passed down from parent to child that can only be activated once you actually become a vampire. And this is based on something that Lily said.
I'm a Ripper. All of the guilt you've carried for your lack of control, it's my fault, not yours. You get it from me.
Well, now onto the misconceptions about Rippers, and there are two of them. The first one being, are Rippers stronger than regular vampires? And the answer to that is no. The only ones that actually have a strength boost are the Augustine vampires, mainly because they're genetically modified to be just that strong. With regular Rippers on the other hand, they aren't. They're just as strong as any vampire their age. This misconception comes from a misunderstanding of a lore explanation of how exactly human blood actually affects a vampire's strength. Yes, the vampire that actually stopped taking human blood would always be weaker than a vampire that is still taking human blood. However, nowhere in the entire verse has it ever stated the more blood you drink, the stronger you are. The reason why Stefan was so weak in comparison to Damon before becoming a Ripper is because Stefan didn't really drink human blood. He opted to drink animal blood to actually avoid his whole Ripper stuff. When he started drinking human blood again, he became just as strong as him. So yeah, that was never really stated in the show. It was more so you need to be drinking human blood. And Stefan wasn't drinking human blood, he was just drinking animal blood. But anyways, on to the second misconception, which is which characters exactly are classified as Rippers by its definition. So I'm going to go through the list of every single vampire that will technically be classified as a Ripper. And the ones that aren't actually included that are technically popular characters that a lot of people actually believe are Rippers, I'm going to say why I don't think they actually are.
Kill this one quickly. Make that one suffer. I'll be in the car.
Please don't. Please.
Stefan is the most known Ripper out of all of them, and he's the reason why we have so much lore around the term Rippers. Like I said earlier on, Stefan has both morality and compassion, even as a Ripper, but only when his humanity is on and when he's not actively feeding or actively hunting. When he's actually feeding, that's all gone. Stefan blacks out when he feeds, and he feeds until he rips your head clean off. After he finishes, his humanity just returns. So he actually gets his feelings again, actually understand what exactly he just did. And then he just panics and tries to put them back together again. Which is how Stefan actually got his calling card. This is how you will know a certain kill is done specifically by Stefan Salvatore. Stefan was also responsible for the Monterey massacre, in which he killed everyone in a small encampment in Monterey. And he did this on Christmas, some of them even being children. This is how Stefan actually earned the title, the Ripper of Monterey.
Tell me how to get her back!
Your mom's a Ripper, okay? She's a Ripper. She turned in 1858. Faked her death. Went to Europe where she... nuts. No. Bodies piled up, she moved, killed some more until she had to move again. They think 3,000 in total. That's enough. For some reason, my government made it their duty to stop her. So they cut her off in New York Harbor before she could tear through Manhattan. Granted, by the time we got to the ship, I found everybody dead. It was so gruesome they had to burn it there at the harbor.
That's it! That's enough!
Lily Salvatore is the mother of both Damon and Stefan, and is the reason why Stefan had his Ripper genes. Lily is also stated to be just as violent as Stefan, if not even more so violent. After Lily became a vampire, she became a serial killer. Like, she had an estimated body count of over 3,000, which is why the Gemini Coven really wanted her locked in the prison world.
You caught me in the middle of a 72-hour social gathering. Make yourself at home. Friend with a Vervain gun. If you could holster that, I sure would feel a lot more comfortable.
Oscar's a lesser known character and probably the least memorable Ripper out there. He was stated to be a Ripper by Damon, but we didn't really see him do much Ripper stuff. He's one of the heretics, and that's it. As in, that's kind of it for him as a character.
I did find out something that night. I'm a Ripper. I'm so sorry. That was the worst moment of my life. You think I didn't feel any remorse over what happened? But I did. Shame, guilt, panic. I couldn't bear feeling all of it anymore. So I decided not to.
Like Oscar, Jade is also one of the least memorable Rippers out there. She was one of the characters that were banished by Alaric, as in the people that Alaric sent to the prison world, because she was actually attacking people, but that really is all that we know about her. She's violent and sassy, and that's pretty much it. But anyways, those are the vampires that were actually born as Rippers, but they were still vampires that were made into Rippers much later on in their lives. These are Augustine vampires, or the Hex vampires.
What the hell is happening to me? Why am I so hungry?
What are you doing to me?
Subject is confused, yet self-aware. Personality seems intact. Hunger remains primary focus. All in all, appears to be a perfect candidate.
Jesse was a minor character in season 5 who was eventually turned into a vampire and subsequently made into an Augustine vampire who acts as Rippers. Augustine vampires are basically what I said earlier on about Rippers, but this time it's actually aimed towards vampires instead of humans. So Jesse attacks vampires and vampires alone, as in Augustine vampires crave vampire blood, and Jesse was a slightly more memorable character than Jade and Oscar, but he isn't as memorable as the other characters who I'm about to go through. Jesse was also shown to be physically stronger than Damon, even though he had only been a vampire for about a few minutes, and Damon is over a century old. So this outright proves that Augustine vampires are just made to be that strong, as in they are genetically modified to be that strong.
What's happening to you?
I'm gonna go ahead and say karma. Karma is happening to me.
Damon, stop!
Damon was our Augustine vampire for a brief amount of episodes. He was very, very strong as well. He even showed being physically stronger than Tyler, who we've actually seen fight off Nadia, who is 500 years old. Which means that Damon was stronger than hybrids when he became an Augustine vampire and would probably be on par with ancient vampires.
Good day. I've managed to extract the werewolf venom from Nadia Petrova's blood. The addition of the venom will make the Ripper virus even more lethal to vampires.
He was just using her as a case study in his project to wipe out vampires off the face of the earth. Why are you telling me this? I said it before, and I'll say it again. Elena had the life I always wanted. Well, until now.
Catherine, what did you do?
Stefan thought he gave me a choice. Run or die, but that's not really much of a choice, is it? After all, Nadia was the only person in this world who really loved me. And I wasn't about to let my daughter die alone. But Catherine Pierce wasn't about to go gentle either.
Elena also was briefly injected with the Ripper virus and became an Augustine vampire or Augustine Ripper, but eventually, along with Damon, she was cured from it.
That leaves Nick. Do you think he's learned his lesson about backstabbing his family?
Well, I think he learns that lesson all the time. He's just a terrible student.
Do you ever want to just rip out his heart and see how long it takes to grow back?
What is it?
Marvelous. What to get the girl who has everything this Christmas? Cure to a magical mark growing on her bloody arm.
Rebekah was also technically made into a Ripper, but only briefly in season 3 after she was actually hexed. But in her case, she was more so made into a rabid psychopath. Rebekah was basically fighting everyone. She basically had no filter. If she hates you, she really hates you. If she wants you dead, she will try her absolute hardest to make sure that you die, even fighting off people much stronger than her. Basically, everything negative about Rebekah was heightened through the hex.
There was never any hope for you, brother. No self-control.
Technically, like Rebekah, Kol also became a Ripper. He was extremely violent, quick to anger, and pretty much whenever he's angry, he just goes to kill. And according to him, his hunger has been made unending, and he also stated that his hunger now, at that point that he was actually hexed, is a lot worse than he has ever been before. So yeah, that technically describes Rippers. But was Kol a Ripper beforehand? Probably not. I don't think Kol was ever a Ripper before he actually was hexed. I think Kol was just a very violent character, and you already explained why he was actually violent. I'll do a separate video another time on why I actually believe that Kol wasn't a vampire before he was actually hexed. I actually believe that Kol was just like Klaus, just like Michael, just like Damon, just like Julian, in terms of them actually just being very violent vampires that aren't necessarily rippers. But anyways, on to another big one. Was Elijah ever a ripper? No. Well, at least I don't actually believe that he actually was. We've actually seen Elijah feed before, and he actually feeds very normally and doesn't act anywhere near the same level as Stefan or any other ripper. So I doubt Elijah is like Stefan in terms of him being an outright ripper. Although I do believe that the lore around the Red Door and the lore around rippers are very similar, especially based on the way that they actually try to hide their dark selves. As in, Elijah tries to hide his dark self by wearing his suits and being very clean and acting very suave. And with rippers, they try to hide their dark self by outright not feeding. When they actually start feeding, they become what they hate. And Elijah, when he actually starts to be dirty, start having blood around his shirt, not wearing his suits anymore, he starts to become exactly what we know Elijah to be, which is he's just as violent as his siblings. But if you want to know more about what the Red Door actually is, then click on the video that's on screen now.